Hi there, my name is Melissa Jellison. I teach 6th grade in Whitefield, New Hampshire, and this is my very first video analysis reflection on tape. As an educator, it's important to reflect on your lessons, but this is a first for me. I've never done it on video. So I'm going to use the lesson plan analysis instrument to guide my reflection so it seemed a little bit more natural, I guess. So the lesson that I videotaped was a physical science class, and we have been working on physical and chemical characteristics. And in this lesson, the goal was to find the relationship between volume and density. So the only properties, physical properties we were learning about were volume and density that day. So the beginning of the lesson, we started out talking about if whether objects would sink or float, and I think that taps into finding awareness of what their precognition of what they already know about the subject. They might not know sink and float might be relationship between density, so I was trying to bridge that gap. So yeah, like I said earlier, the goal of the whole lesson was to learn about the relationship between volume and density. This was going to be a two-day activity. The first day is what I videotaped, that is the lesson. The second day we took the application of what they learned in the lesson and applied it to the formulas that density and volume use. So it's a two-dayer, and it's one of those circumstances where you don't see what comes after. But so I had my pre-assessment was to find out about sink and float, see what they knew about the topic, and it was very interesting. Probably my favorite part of it was the wooden box. They all thought it was going to sink because they think wood is heavy, and they had a hole in it, so it has a hole in it, it must sink. Lo and behold, it floated. So I knew there were some misconceptions right there. I only wish that I took that moment right there to talk about wood sinking and floating. You know, how many of us live near the Connecticut River up here? How many of us have the Ammonoosuc River? And you see trees and branches floating down. I just wish I took that moment to say, have you ever seen wood float? Have you ever seen wood sink? So I didn't take that opportunity to kind of delve into that. The assessment that you don't see at the end of today, of that lesson, was they had to take a piece of tinfoil, and there was the same mass, same area of tinfoil, and they had to make it sink. They had to make it float first. So a lot of them built a boat because they tapped into that prior knowledge and made a boat. And then they had to use that same piece of tinfoil to make it sink. So changing the volume was how I was trying to get them find the relationship between volume and density. Before we even got there, as you'll see in the lesson, is that we did density cubes. We got to look at objects having the same volume but different densities. And then we had volumes that had different densities, and they could feel them and hold them. And then we did the same sink and float activity with them. So we saw more wood float. We saw pieces of metal sink. So something that has the same volume necessarily doesn't have the same density. So that was the learning that was happening there. In terms of equity, I always make sure that boys and girls get a chance to speak. At the beginning of the year, we talk a lot about what a scientist is. And the majority of them say that it's a male with funny hair and a lab coat. And a lot of them don't realize that we're all scientists. We might not have a science background, but we all are scientists because we're all trying to discover new things. So I try to make it really clear that I focus on girls, focus on boys. The other piece of equity that I focused on is that I have different levels of questioning it's kind of my differentiation. The whole lesson was very much lecture based. It was me talking to them and they responding, which I would like to tweak for next year. But I asked a question, they respond, great, you got it right, no, you didn't, let's go back. It was very much ping pong. I ask, they answer, I ask, they answer. And I had varying leveling of questioning, trying to tap into those Bloom's taxonomies. Can they apply knowledge? Can they access it? Can they be specific? Those sort of things. In terms of engagement, I would say this class was engaged. There was moments to move. There was moments of excitement. I interjected humor. They were engaged. I will be honest, there's 2 6th grade classes, and I chose the better behaved. And they're a little bit more easy to encourage and engage. A couple of classroom discourse points. You might have noticed that I was saying take a break to some students. That is a responsive classroom. If there's behavior that gets out of hand, I tell them to take a break, and it's just a quiet spot in the room where they think and reflect, and when they're ready to come back, whoosh, they come back and rejoin the lesson. The other thing you might have noticed is I was tallying on the board for interruptions. That was kind of, if they interrupt, they lose free time at the end of class, which you didn't see on the tape. The skills that I was trying to get out of them is to basically find the relationship between volume and density. Once again, it was a 2-dayer. So they took the application of what they learned in this lesson and applied it to math the next day using worksheets and applying it to formulas. Overall, I thought my lesson was strong. Me as a teacher, I could pick on my rate of speech. I talk too fast. And besides that, I don't like the sound of my own voice, but that's the kind of thing you get when you talk into a camera and you have to listen to yourself. So overall, I have some ideas for how I'm going to change it for next year. And thanks for watching.